Hello, my name is Austin Belzer, and you're listening to the audio review of the film Cruella. Now, before we get started, I want to give a quick disclaimer. I was provided with a review screener of this movie from Disney before it even showed up in theaters or was on Disney Plus Premier Access prior to its release. So, in that sense, that's sort of an influential thing. And speaking of influences, the only thing Disney has influenced, they have not seen the review of this film. They have not told me anything to do with this film, the review of the film, other than I cannot spoil any aspect of the film. Their words, not mine. So without further ado, let's get this started. Let's get into it. In 2014, Disney started upon a new path for Walt Disney Pictures. Starting with Maleficent, the studio would be going back to Walt Disney animation films and reinterpreting them for modern audiences. 7 years later, we've had interpretations of Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Dumbo, Aladdin, The Lion King, Lady and the Tramp, Mulan, a pseudo-sequel to the Winnie and the Pooh franchise, as well as sequels to the 2010 Alice in Wonderland film, and, of course, Maleficent. In those 7 years and 12 films, of which I've seen 9, the formula of these remakes has shifted in interesting ways. With Maleficent, it went about crafting a story before the events of Sleeping Beauty. Then, in The Jungle Book, the film blended computer-generated animals and a child actor to tell a story closer to Richard Kipling's book that eschewed the animated film's musical tendencies, although there are multiple callbacks throughout the film. Beauty and the Beast trying going full theater kid, with gorgeous new costumes, new renditions of the song we know, with one new song making its way in, a motion capture performance of Beast, who is played by Dan Stevens, CG castle servants, and dolling up the animated film for a live-action audience. Even giving Beast and Belle backstories that were not previously explored in the original film. Christopher Robin tried something completely different. Instead of adapting the material one-to-one, the plot was much more about Christopher Robin and his journey from the 100-acre wood into the real world as a family man working a corporate job he hates. Dumbo tried to ground the 1941 animated film's plot into live action, dropping the heavier elements of the plot to criticize Disney themselves. Aladdin introduced a cast who felt like they lived in Agrabah, which informed the plot as much more politically driven fare, something Mulan also did. The Lion King and Lady and the Tramp are basically the animated film adapted for live-action audiences. Out of these, I think the best decision the live-action remakes of these bunch are the ones that tried to find a new story within the existing narrative framework of the animated film it's based on. Namely, my favorite new spins are Christopher Robin, Maleficent, and Aladdin. The reason I like these new spins is that it's not just trying to remake an animated film into live action. Instead, what's happening is that new spin forces creative thoughts about what a modern audience would like to see from a live-action version of the story they know. Cruella forges a similar path to Maleficent. Instead of adapting the animated film or acting as a spiritual sequel to the Glenn Close adaptation, it looks at the villain behind the animated film and delves deep into her psyche and what drove her to hunt the Dalmatians. Is this spin on the classic story worth the $30 Disney is asking you to watch at home via Disney Plus Premier Access? Should you take a trip out to your local movie theater? Or should you just wait until it becomes free to stream on Disney Plus on August 27th? Well, that answer is a bit complicated for those who only have $30 to spend, but I think it's worth whatever you spend to see Cruella. Out of the several highlights of Cruella, one of Walt Disney Pictures' finest choices was hiring director Craig Gillespie right off its fantastic film, I, Tonya. Much of Cruella's identity feels very much wrapped in that same tone of a woman who's so close to the edge of villainy because of the society around her. There's a sense that the titular character is towing a line that she's not sure if she should cross. Some may gawk at how serious Gillespie treats a character whose last name is a wordplay on devil with such seriousness, but I appreciated the tonal shift from the source material. Cruella is not trying to be a film made for children. It's trying to tell a story of how an aspiring fashion designer becomes the most notorious villain in film history. Likewise, the screenplay from Dana Fox, who wrote The Wedding Date, What Happens in Vegas, and Ben and Kate, and Tony McNamara, The Favorite and the Great, who are working off a story by Alan Brosh McKenna, who wrote The Devil Wears Prada, 27 Dresses, Morning Glory, We Bought a Zoo, Crazy Ex-Girlfriends, among others. Kelly Marcel, Saving Mr. Banks, 50 Shades of Grey, Terra Nova, and Steve Zissou, who wrote Baghead, Cyrus the Pentathlon, Togetherness, and Her, treat Cruella de Vil and the other members of the cast with clear storylines that actually matter to the plot. I won't say why for obvious reasons, but there is no wasted room in the script. For the first time in a big budget film, I felt like each character had a solid argument for why they wanted, or didn't want, something to happen in the story. The main highlights of the script are how much focus is cast on Cruella's inner demons, how she wrestles with them, and how that affects her relationships with the Baroness, Jasper, and Horace, who also starred in Gillespie's previous film, I, Tonya. Additionally, the influence of McKenna's writing, specifically The Devil Wears Prada and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, is very much felt in Cruella's career as a fashion designer and how appreciated she sometimes feels. The film has an excellent cast to boot. Emma Stone plays Estella Cruella de Vil. Emma Stone plays Cruella as this rebellious 20-something, and it's quite the intriguing choice. Stone gives Cruella a heart to where you care about her and want the best for her, even if Cruella herself doesn't always make the best choices. On the opposite side of that same coin is Emma Thompson's Baroness, where I think the direction was, do that thing you did in Devil Wears Prada, but notch up the sarcasm. And hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Joel Fry's Jasper could have been more of a voice within the film, but I like how he served as a proxy for the audience within the film. Unfortunately, I would have loved to see Paul Walter Hauser's Horace do something more than repeating the same line over and over again. His character seems a bit underutilized. I wish that there was more to his and the other supporting cast roles, as it feels like Kirby Howell Baptiste and Anita Darling, Mark Strong's John McCree's Artie, Calvin Novak's Roger, and Jamie Dimitro's Gerald kind of shuffle on screen just to be shuffled right back off. It's unfortunate, but I understand why. Something I don't understand is the need for a soundtrack. Outside of the need for Walt Disney Records to sell a soundtrack album, I don't get why it's here. Music doesn't play as big of a part as the setting would make you believe. The only time I think I enjoyed the soundtrack in the film was when it played a part. The soundtrack is excellent and all, with Florence and the Machine, Nina Simone, Supertramp, Queen, Blondie, The Doors, Electric Light Orchestra, The Clash, and many more artists appearing, but it is simply something the film could have done without. Plus, Nicholas Bertel's score is brilliant and evokes the punk rock movement the soundtrack is trying to portray. So, if you're interested in Emma Stone, any incarnation of the 101 Dalmatians franchise, or just want to see a new big budget movie, Cruella might just be the movie for you to see when it releases on Disney Plus Premier Access and in theaters on May 28th. My rating is 4 out of 5 stars. And I want to take some quick time to thank Thomas Stoneham Judge for moviesforreal.net, Shane Kanto from The Wasteland Reviewer and Sif Pop, Joseph Davis from Sif Pop as well, and David Walters for supporting Austin B Media on Patreon. You can help support what I do here at Austin B Media by supporting me on Patreon every month. Click the Become a Patron button at the end of the post to get details. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Austin B Media, on Twitter at Austin B Media _, on Letterboxd Austin B Media, and be sure to subscribe to Austin B Updates. That newsletter should be coming out later today. Subscribe to the Austin B Media podcast, which I guess you already are if you're listening to this, but make sure to rate and review really quick. And until next time, this is your host, Austin Belzer, signing off.